And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 5. Hard to believe we're in season 5. Season 5, episode 2. So a new school year is here. We've got campus move-ins throughout Division 3 on most campuses. It's an exciting time of year if you're a Division 3 basketball fan because we're coming up on kind of football season. We got volleyball season, but we know that D3 hoops is coming, folks. It's not that far away when we get to this point where we're just about at September. Really excited today to have on Aaron Aanonsen, who's the head men's basketball coach at Wisconsin Lutheran College. And the Warriors are doing all kinds of cool things and are poised for a really big season. Aaron, it's great to finally meet you. How the heck are you doing?
Hey, I'm well. Thanks for having me on. It's quite an honor.
Talk a little bit about just how you're feeling coming into this season. And first of all, maybe we should just confirm the rumors that all 5 of those fantastic starters, all 5 of them are coming back this year. Coach, can you confirm those rumors?
They are confirmed. It's been kind of a whirlwind of how we got to this point, but really blessed to have our guys back. Was not expected. Early in the year, AJ decided to come back in 2023-24. He had another year of school left because he was one of the young men who transferred into WLC. Around November, December is when Ryan decided that he was going to come back for a 5th year. He had a death in the family. And one of the interesting things he said was that, in talking to his grandmother, she mentioned that basketball has brought their family closer together.
Wow.
And one of the highlights for not just the immediate family, but the extended family was cheering Ryan on. And if you ever come to our games, Ryan has quite a group and quite a following here in our program. And right when the season ended, Grayson kind of alluded to the same thing. Grayson gets and came back. So I knew we probably had 3.
Sure.
When we got on the bus to come home from WashU, I was certain that Jacob Stoltz and Jacob Heffley were done. Both had jobs lined up. They're ready to start their careers and kind of ready to move on. Honestly, I know they're going to be sad to kind of give it up, but lo and behold, some things fell through. Some job statuses changed, and throughout the summer, now we have all 5 back. So it's unique.
Yeah.
Definitely not something I ever dreamed of. Typically, we haven't had a lot of young men in our program take the 5th year, but this has been a pretty special group. But I would be remiss to say we have a lot of really good players in our program who aren't those guys too. So excited to get going, excited to see what we can do. But truth be told, Bob, I try not to think about it. I'm not a very good guy who deals with goals. The book I read this summer, and it's kind of going to be our theme for our year, is called Burn Your Goals. And we're a very process-driven program where we don't focus on the end result. We focus on just trying to get better every single day. We say you win or you learn. And the book theme for us this year is going to be elite. I'm really excited to see kind of how our guys gravitate towards it. I know some guys think I'm crazy, but they already thought I was crazy on some of the things that I say. But yeah, the first chapter just talks about burning all of your goals and just focus on the process and focus on things you can control. And there's going to be a lot of things we can't control this year, but the one thing we can control is our effort, our energy, our intentionality to loving each other. And that's what we're going to focus on this year.
You guys have a lot of great stuff going on in the program. I believe this is going to be your 8th season, Aaron. Is that correct? 8th season at Wisconsin Lutheran. And, if you just look at the last 3, it's just an unmistakable pattern here. You go from 16-9, 10-7 to 19-8, 14-3 to 24-5, 16-2. Last year, you make the NCAA tournament. You get sent to WashU, one of the powerhouses in Division 3. You take them to overtime. I remember watching that game, and I believe you were up 3, couple minutes left in overtime. Yep. I think another kid from Wisconsin hit a 3. I think it was Hayden Doyle hits a 3, ties it up. But incredible season. And I just wonder, we'll get into that WashU game in a second, but the progression of where your program is, can you just talk about kind of where you see the program?
Yeah, you're right. It has been a progression, and I'd be remiss to say it. If we rewind 5 years ago, we won our first ever conference championship here at WLC. We have two current assistant coaches that were part of that conference championship team, and that was Andrew Brugink and Cole Hartke. Andrew was a 2020 grad,
Sure.
Cole the 2022 grad, and they really helped set the foundation along with some of the other guys and some of the other teams. I think always there's steps to success. I think Aanonsen says it best, right? But this crew that we've had has won, if you include the COVID championship, they won 3 conference championships in 4 years.
Right.
The one they didn't win, our sights were set to win it again. And, we had it in our hands when those guys were sophomores. And they had to learn the hard way of kind of how to come together as a group. And unfortunately, 3 years ago, we didn't win a conference championship. But they've known the system. They're very familiar with it. We play a very unique style. I think you've probably seen that style.
I saw it at North Park for a couple of years. Sure.
So the guys love it. They buy into it. And it's just been so unique watching them grow as well as us. We've grown too. We've kind of changed a few things when those guys became freshmen. And it's really been some good adaptations to our defensive system that has helped us sustain the success.
Yeah, that style, and you mentioned North Park, and that's because Sean Smith, who worked on your staff, was the head coach at North Park for a couple of years. He's now left to go to Division I South Dakota. So I'm very familiar with it from watching, just the havoc that the North Park Vikings wreak on the CCIW, the pace that they play out, the intense pressure defense. How did that become your defensive mentality? Like where did that come from, Aaron?
Yeah, it's a great question. So 5 years ago, we lost in the tournament semifinals, and we were more of a half-court team. We tried to pressure a little bit, but I've wanted to press for a few years. I was just too nervous to do it. Us as coach kind of get a little rigid in our thinking, and I was like, I've never done it before. I've never played in a program that's done it. Like, it was so new to me. And, we lost. And then Sean and I were actually in my office, and we got to watch Benedictine play Susquehanna. And Benedictine pretty much had the lead almost the whole game. And somehow, some way, Susquehanna just kind of found a way at the end. And we've always been a really, really good offensive team. This is my 17th year as a head coach. So we've always had good offensive numbers. But I remember Sean and I sitting in the office saying, like, we're kind of average on defense. And I remember speaking this, and I don't like to admit it, Bob. I was like, we're not very good defensively anyway. How much worse can we get?
Right.
So I say that tongue in cheek. We won 16-4 in league that year, but I meant like we had room to grow. Why don't we try something different? Right. And some of the restrictions us, maybe we're not athletic enough. Or what happens if we play a WashU or Stevens Point or Illinois Wesleyan? I'm thinking like our best has to be better than their best. And, if you learn to press, because we talked with a lot of pressing people, the one thing they said is do what you do every day, and hopefully your best is better than their best.
Sure.
Right. So I completely changed everything. I went from a man/zone team to we went all in on this pressing system. Fast forward 6 years, here we are. It's a great way to play. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever go back now that I'm into it. It just disrupts the offense. It forces your guys to play a lot harder.
Right.
It's chaotic and it's so much fun, and I always tell new people, because I've met with a lot of one-off coaches who are thinking about pressing. I just tell them it's a lifestyle. You got to live with it. There's going to be some games that goes really well. There's going to be some games that doesn't go well. You're going to have bits and pockets within the game where it doesn't go well. I know you watched our WashU game.
Oh,
you
yeah.
saw 5 minutes were not great for us.
Right.
Over 45 minutes with that overtime, it always kind of evened out. And, I like to say that style of play just is who we are.
Yeah, and I following my Illinois Wesleyan Titans. I mean, we played Redlands last year they play a similar style, and we played, of course, North Park. And what I've found about the style is that when like you go up against one of these teams with tons of size, uh, like our team typically has a 6'5" and a 6'8" and a 6'9" guy or something. It forces those guys to have to handle the ball, and most of them aren't ball handlers. And it really does change the personnel on occasion. Like there's times when I've seen Ron Rose in these games have to go with, a smaller lineup, a lineup that he wouldn't normally play because his 4-man or his 5-man can't handle the ball. And it really does make a huge impact on the game. And I think, do you think more and more teams, Aaron, are going that way? It seems to me like I'm seeing more and more of these up tempo, in your face defensive teams in the last couple of years. Are you seeing that?
I think so. I think some of the restrictions and some of the, maybe preconceived notions is you can't do it. You have to be extremely deep, which I think you have to play more guys. And that's one of the benefits of the pressing system, but it's just not natural, right? Kids don't normally, if you play pickup or play an open gym, they don't pick up 94 feet, right? So it's different. A lot of coaches, at least I think in the Midwest, don't do it.
Yeah.
So it's just not natural. But the more you do it, the more you learn, the more you grow. I'm kind of a basketball junkie. I geek out on just learning and growing. I think there was one night this week I popped up my laptop at 9:30 p.m. and I just went on a deep dive on some offensive schemes till about 12:30.
Nice.
I blinked and there's 3 hours later, and I'm going to regret it the next morning. Right. But when you love studying the game, you always learn new things. And it's been something that stuck with us. Our guys have bought into it. Obviously, our coaching staff loves it. We believe in it. And I think that's one of the main things to having a successful program is having a coaching staff that has undeniable belief in what they're doing. And then you get guys to buy in on what you're doing as well.
Wanted to mention the start of your schedule for this coming year, because that was the last thing I did before getting ready for this morning. I thought, oh, I forgot to look at the schedule, and I'm like, holy crap, they're playing Elmhurst, North Park, and Wheaton right out of the gates. And so you get a dose of the CCIW, and Elmhurst has been fantastic the last many years. They've been great. What John Baines has done there, they went to the tournament again. North Park has a new head coach. They've brought in some talent. Not quite sure where North Park fits in the CCIW pecking order coming in, but they're going to have all kinds of talent. And Wheaton should be back to Wheaton this year, I believe. What was the decision here to set up the schedule with Elmhurst, North Park, Wheaton, just boom, boom, boom?
Something different. We've played a few teams in the WIC the last few years. Obviously, when I was setting it up, I wasn't sure what the kind of what the RPI SOS Region 8 situations were going to be. But we have a few Illinois guys, so I thought it would just be something different. The CCIW obviously is an unbelievable conference, and sometimes you just want to try some new things as a coach. And unbelievable respect for the CCIW. To be blunt, I was not very familiar with it until kind of Sean went down to North Park, and then I became Sean's #1 fan. So I watched pretty much every CCIW game the last couple of years, and just thought it would be, some fun games and fun atmospheres to play in. And I think it would be a good experience for our team.
Yeah, that's a great way to start the year. And you have opportunities right out of the gates. There's a new system, this NPI, where strength of schedule is very important. Winning games is important, obviously. And so it'll be interesting to see how NPI changes how teams are ranked and selected. But those should be 3 really good tests for you right out of the gates. Just talking about, again, that WashU game, wanted to go back to that. It was such a great game. And you mentioned it didn't start out that great. I think they may have been up 10-0 or said, I don't know what, they hit a couple threes right out of the gates or something. And then you call a timeout, kind of settle in. You get the game to overtime. You have a lead in overtime. They hit a shot. You hit a shot. What was that experience like playing WashU in the NCAA tournament? Just talk through kind of that whole deal.
Yeah, it was so much fun. If there is a moment in time I can go back, it was that week, right? Our guys were so excited to play. But I think the overwhelming theme within our team is don't take this the wrong way, Bob, but we weren't going down for the experience. Our
Yeah,
group thought we were going to the Sweet 16, and obviously that didn't happen. But I loved the approach of our team.
sure.
I believed we were going to go in and win. And even when we were down 10-0, because we've been down 10-0 before, we never thought we were going to lose. We knew we were going to come back. But it was just a new atmosphere. We've never played in that facility before. Some of our shots did not look like they were even close to the first couple minutes. But I knew once we got settled in, once we got into our routines, we would be okay. But, that first 5 minutes put us in a hole that, if we could have back, maybe we aren't going into overtime. But Pat's a phenomenal coach. I know him from his Wisconsin days at Wisconsin Oshkosh, and I knew we were getting into, but it was such a fun experience. I did not want to walk out of that gym, didn't want it to end, but sometimes all good things must come to an end. And but just a fun week. If there's one week I could go back to, it'd be that week again.
And it is a testament to the way you guys play, because if I'm not mistaken, was it just the year before that North Park knocked off WashU playing Sean Smith's system? And
I think so.
I believe it was just the year before. And, when going into the game, there were a lot of people kind of in the Twitter world saying, hey, upset alert, look out for Wisconsin Lutheran. And I was on the camp of like, with WashU's just too big. They were huge last year, and they're always huge, right? And I just felt like I'm looking at your roster, 6'0, 6'3, 6'1, 6'5, 6'6. And I'm thinking, boy, at every position, especially at the, 3, 4, 5, you're giving up tons of size. But again, I should have gone back to the year before and how much trouble North Park gave them. And then as the game went out, how much trouble you gave them. And I mean, did you leave that game feeling like we can win, we can advance in the NCAA tournament with what we're doing here at Wisconsin Lutheran? Did you feel that way on the bus heading back north?
I felt crushed, honestly. That's probably the best feeling I had, but I felt extremely proud. This is my 17th year as a college head coach, Bob, believe it or not. And I don't take for granted having success. I know what it feels like to win. But I also tell all the coaches around me and everyone I know, like, I know what it feels like to lose. My first year here, we started out 1-10, and I don't think we were a 1-10 team. I think we were not a bad team. We just didn't get any breaks, right? So I've been on the side where maybe you don't win as much, you don't get in the conference tournament. Obviously, everyone sees the success we've had, the last 5 years here in our program. We had some really, really good success too at Lakeland. But when you win, you appreciate it. But when you've lost before you've won, you really appreciate the successes and victories because it may never happen again. So, yeah, I think we could do it again, Bob, but every year's a new year. Every team's a new team. So many things have to go our way to even get into the NCAA tournament. But what I did realize is when we got to that moment, we were built for it. If a couple things go our way, our director of athletic communications likes to tell me once in a while we shot our area code from the free throw line that game. So we were 14 from the free throw line. We were a really good free throw shooting team as well. So I think if we can get back to that point again, our guys will be even more battle tested. They'll know what to expect. But it's such a long journey. As you said, we got 4 CCIW teams on our non-con. We go down to Texas for a front trip against Trinity and Southwestern. And our league is really good. I think our league sometimes doesn't get the credit it deserves.
Yeah.
We have some really good coaches who I think could go to almost any single level, Division 1 through 3, and be successful. And they've chosen to be, in our conference. So I'm not taking for granted that, it's going to be really, really hard to repeat even what we've done in our league because there's so many darn good coaches and players.
And, to your point about you guys feeling like you could have been in the Sweet 16 come before the games started. I mean, the way the games played out proved it. In my opinion, you go to overtime against WashU and think about that, the other game on the bracket, and think about how tight these games were that played out. Was it Illinois College that ends up playing WashU for the right to go to Trine? And that was a nail biter, correct? So, like the way these games played out, I think absolutely it could have been in the Sweet 16. And once you get in the Sweet 16, that you look at this, Aaron, around how much parity there is in the way the games played out. Fontbonne played Trine really tough. Trine ends up winning it all. And so there's just, bounces the ball, free throws, that kind of thing. Wanted to ask about your guys because these 5 guys that returned, you have a deep team. You have many guys outside of these 5, but this starting lineup, I want to ask you about. I want to start with Ryan Breckel, who is a 6'6". He'll be a 5th-year guy this year. He's a forward. Last year, averaged 17 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists. He shot 51% from the field. He was named an NABC first-team All-American. He was named the NACC Men's Basketball Player of the Year. He was named the NACC Student Athlete of the Year. So you have one of these like unicorn kids on your roster right now that every coach in America would love to have. Can you talk a little bit about Ryan Breckel?
He's special. Yeah, he's such an unbelievable human being. And again, he has a really good heart, and he knows what it's like to not always have success. His first year here, he had to miss the whole year with a medical red shirt because he had microfracture surgery. So he knows what it's like to not play. He got to watch our guys win their first ever tournament championship when they were freshmen, and he just had to watch it from the sidelines. And he has an unbelievable story because he's the guy who wasn't always the man growing up. So middle school, elementary school, he was the guy who, wasn't always the first one picked. We'll say that nicely, right? For any sort of basketball team. And everything that he's done, he's had to earn. And it's just so much fun to watch him go from a guy who's been hurt, to a guy who averaged about 6 points a game his quote unquote sophomore freshman year to, back-to-back NACC Player of the Year. And he does so many things for us to make us successful that don't revolve around scoring. What I don't think people see enough is how he is the anchor of our defense. He can alter things around the rim. He's a really, really good rebounder for us. And he's a very good playmaking forward for us. But I think the thing that makes him special, and I honestly think the thing that's got him the amount of accolades he's gotten, is all the other guys. I think that's kind of the secret sauce behind it. He would say it if he was on this QCast as well, is, he's probably not an All-American if he doesn't have all the guys around him, because all the guys around him are special.
Yeah, he's a superstar guy that plays within the team structure as well as any that I can remember. He stands out, but yet he also blends right in. I don't know if that makes sense, but both of those things seem to be true with the way he plays. Another guy I wanted to ask you was Jacob Stoltz. He was also a first team all NACC guy last year. He's a 6-foot guard. He'll also be a 5th year. Last year, 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He made 69 threes and he shot 38% from 3, which is pretty crazy for a high volume shooter. Talk a little bit about Jacob Stoltz.
Yeah, he's had an unbelievable year last year. He was actually our leading scorer as a freshman on our first tournament championship team. Obviously, we didn't get to go to the tournament because it was the COVID year. But he's kind of been a guy who has helped run the show. I think he doesn't sometimes get the credit he deserves, but when he's really good, we're really good. You kind of saw that in the WashU game when he was just unbelievable. I mean, nobody could keep him in front. He's making plays. He's getting to the hoop. His finishing package is really strong. But again, very similar Ryan, very similar other guys, just extremely humble in his approach. Very likable personality, just one that, all the guys gravitate towards. And it's been fun, again, watching him grow up and in his maturation process as a player. Because if you look at the previous years, he didn't always shoot it that well from the outside, but that's something he really worked on in the offseason. He could always shoot in practice, but it's just his confidence in game to just let it fly, not think and trust his ability. And last year, he got back to that again.
Another guy that's as important as any of the others here is 6'3" guard. Again, he'll be another fifth year. Grayson Getz. He was also a first teamer. You had 3 first teamers in the league last year. 14 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Now, this one's really crazy. He made 76 threes and he shot 43% from beyond the arc. I forgot to pull up like the nationwide lead. That has to be one of the top 1 or 2 or 3 shooters in Division III, if not all the levels. But talk a little bit about Grayson Getz.
Yeah, he plays a little bit like Luka. That's his favorite player. Loves the Dallas Mavericks down by you.
Yeah.
He's really good with the ball in his hands. Very good at reading screens. He's just the guy that you want to play with and don't want to play against, right? He has this fear none mentality, which is unbelievable. You know, he kind of helps us go behind the scenes in the locker room. You know, he's the guy who was coming in my office a year ago saying, "Hey coach, like if we come back, like let's load this thing up. Let's do it. You know, I want to play against the best in the country to kind of see where we're at." And it's fun to coach him because there's not a guy who believes in our team and believes in himself more than Grayson does. And I love that unwavering confidence that he possesses.
Yeah, fun player to watch. And I think the Luka comparison's pretty darn good when I see Luka quite a bit. And I like that. And then a couple other guys that maybe statistically don't jump out like the other 3, because the other 3 have these crazy numbers, but really productive guys. Jacob Heffley is a 6'1" guard. He'll be a 5th-year guy. Talk about Jacob, and then while you're at it, talk about AJ Voss as well, who averaged 9 and 6 last year.
Yeah, Jacob Heffley can really shoot it. He's a floor spacer and one of the best shooters I've ever coached. But I think one of the underrated achievements or skill sets he has is on the defensive end. If you watch him in the press, you watch him in the half court, he moves his feet exceptionally well. His attention to detail and a scout is unbelievable. And you pretty much will see him until we start switching. He's usually going to be matched up on the other team's best player. And AJ Voss arguably was our conference tournament MVP. If you kind of watch the 3 games we had in the conference tournament, he was unbelievable. His splits from the points, rebounds perspective was crazy. I can't remember. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I remember as a coaching staffer saying, man, AJ, I know he doesn't get the credit like, you know, he deserves, but he may have been our tournament MVP. He was unbelievable. And defensively, he's kind of the leader in our press. So if you watch closely, he's the guy that we've kind of taught to make a lot of the reads on when he traps, when he doesn't. A lot of this stuff in our program isn't scripted. It's guys, we're teaching them to make reads and feel, and then everybody's got to kind of play off of essentially AJ. So look at him as kind of like the quarterback of our defense. And by the end of the year, he was making some unbelievable reads to really distort the rhythm of the other team's offense.
Yeah, it's just such a talented group. They play so well together. Again, you have a lot of guys that come off the bench and contribute to this. I'm sure there'll be even more this year that do. Wanted to ask you a little bit about recruiting. You have a roster mostly made up of Wisconsin kids. You've got several from Illinois. I want to say of 1 or 2 from other states, but it's a Wisconsin, Illinois, and being there in Milwaukee. I mean, do you feel, Aaron, like, I know we could argue the other side that it's incredibly competitive in the D3 landscape with where you are, but what better 2 states to pull from in the Division III world than Wisconsin and Illinois? Talk a little bit kind of about your footprint and that kind of the talent around you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And going back to a quickly, our team, you know, one of our goals is to play more guys. And we have a ton of guys that I didn't mention to you, Bob, who are extremely capable players, really good. And I'm excited to hopefully get a few more guys on the court this year and see what they can do. But even after these guys are gone, I know everyone's going to say that we're probably not going to be very good. That also happened 5 years ago when Andrew began graduated, and then we had some guys that were just kind of waiting in the fold, and we have some guys that grow, and hopefully in a year, they can take over and we can hopefully have some success we've had. But recruiting in Milwaukee is phenomenal. You have to know your niche. I think every school I've ever worked at, your job can become a lot easier if you know what your recruiting landscape is, what your niche is. And throughout the years, we've gotten a little bit better every year at just kind of owning our niche. We focused a ton on Wisconsin kids, Milwaukee area kids, Valley kids, which is like that Appleton, Green Bay area.
Sure.
But also, especially in the summer, we'll dip down into Chicago and try and find some right fits that we feel could be good players for our program too. So I think the beautiful thing is unlike some schools that are traveling 2, 3, 4 hours to go to a high school game, it's not uncommon for me to go to practice, drive 20 minutes down the road, and find some really good talent. And that's been a huge blessing, because being a father of 3 kids, to be blunt, Bob, I don't want to drive 4 hours on a Friday night to watch a game, get home at 2 a.m. anymore, and then get on the bus at 8 a.m. for a charter to Illinois the next day. But we try to own our niche, and that's it. Own that 1 hour radius to start. And after that, try and find right fits that we think enjoy what this college in the city of Milwaukee has to offer.
Last year, I did like a study. I was curious on, I was trying to prove a point that I thought was right, which was that like Illinois and Wisconsin are the hotbeds of Division III talent. I think it's just different. I believe that kids in Illinois and Wisconsin grow up in high school thinking good things about the Division III schools around them, as opposed to other parts of the country where they look down on Division III. And the study showed, I looked at every person that's been named an All-American by D3Hoops.com since the first All-American team. This is like 25 years worth of data. And the most All-Americans, the state with the most was Illinois. And I think I think the second most was Wisconsin. It was like 1 and 2. And obviously, if we look at national championships in Division III with what the WIAC has done, and you look at like, the championships that North Park won in Illinois Wesleyan, do you feel like the kids you're recruiting kind of have a favorable impression of the D3 brand when you knock on their door, when you go to their practice, when you meet them for the first time? Or just talk through that part of it a little bit.
I think some do and some don't. We're in the process of bringing in visits for the 2025 class, and you'd be amazed by the number of times I pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I'm Coach A from Wisconsin Lutheran College." And I start talking. I'm like, "Well, what do you know about WLC?" I would say 50% of them, Bob, are like, "I don't know anything about WLC. I'm here to learn more." So you're always educating, you're always creating a narrative. And I think there's obviously a stereotype with a lot of young men that Division III basketball isn't competitive, right? And I get it. I had the dream of playing Division I basketball too. It didn't work out for me. But I think the biggest thing we try and do is help those young men be an educated consumer, right? And come to our practices, come to our games. I love it when guys can watch our practice. I love it when young men can watch our games, because that's where you see like how a young man might fit in, and they can visualize it a little bit more. But I think the thing we try and project, it's not an exact science, but we're trying to project out not necessarily who can we recruit, but who is also going to retain and be a 4-year player. And if you kind of look at the majority of our roster makeup, what you will also notice is, for the most part, I'm not saying we're not ever going to change or pivot, Bob, but we've had 4-year kids in our program, or we've had typically a transfer or 2 in our program that we recruited out of high school.
Right.
They went to another 4-year school and they realized it wasn't the right fit. That I feel like has been a game changer for us, because there's been a lot of continuity and consistency within our program. Our guys, I always say, we want them to come here for more than just basketball. So when something goes wrong, they hit the first sign of adversity, because it's going to hit when you go to college. They're not entering the portal, and they're not leaving in the first month of school. These guys can delay gratification a little bit. They can fight through some of those things. And those are some transferable skills, Bob, that are gonna help them the next 40 to 50 years of their life. So while we're recruiting, we're really trying to figure out and analyze what kids do we think could be good 3 to 4 year players? We do have some accelerated degrees here at WLC where guys at times graduate in 3. We've had those situations as well. But for the most part, we don't want a guy who's coming here for 1 year, hopping in the portal and trying to go D1. I'd rather coach, recruit maybe a lesser talented player who wants to be here for 4.
Yeah, and I think when the COVID year ends, and this is the last year of that extra year, I think that programs like yours will end up shining and having an advantage because you've been recruiting 4-year players all along. You stay in the same rhythm. You've got freshmen and sophomores that are ready to step into new roles, and I think a lot of teams have relied on the transfer route the last few years, and they'll be okay, but they're going to have to change what they're doing once this 5th year is not a thing. Just two more questions for you. And thanks so much for your time, Aaron. Your path to coaching, I always like to ask people that because somewhere there'll be an assistant coach or someone that's aspiring to be a coach. Maybe it's a senior in college right now that wants to get into coaching. You played at lacrosse. So you played in the powerhouse WashU. So you know all about great hoops in Wisconsin. You were a captain on that team in 04-05. You were an assistant at Minnesota State Moorhead, and you were then at Lakeland. And I believe you went Lakeland right here to Wisconsin Lutheran. I hope I didn't miss a step. But any advice for young folks that are trying to get into coaching? They don't know what to do. They're not quite sure. Any tips for them on this kind of path and how to succeed?
Yeah, I teach a leadership class. This was about 30 minutes of my first class I taught on Tuesday, Bob, was just kind of find your why, right? When you're in college, you're trying to figure yourself out. You're trying to do a lot of exploration. When I went to college, I wanted to be a doctor. So I have an exercise science pre-med degree and had a lot of knee injuries. My career did not play out the way I wanted to be, but God has a plan for everything. And my 8th semester, I did an internship at Viterbo University in their athletic department under Barry Breed, still there. And that was kind of the aha moment for me is I don't know if I want to do this whole medical field thing. I think I want to go in the world of sports. Fast forward to about March or April, when I was a freshman at UWL, Stu Ingen was his name, was at Minnesota State. He was at UW Lacrosse my freshman year. One of my college teammates, Jason Kemp, who is the assistant at the University of Minnesota, moved on from MSU to North Dakota State as an assistant. That opened up an opportunity for me to go on some interviews. So I interviewed at 2 places the Monday after I graduated from UWL. I made the trip up to Williston State College. Wow. That's in Williston, North Dakota. And on the way back down, I interviewed at Minnesota State University in Moorhead. And it's a fun story. I got a full-time job offer at Williston State College, was going to take the job. And then I got offered $6,000 for my first coaching job at MSU. And after talking with Coach Ingen, after talking with my good friend Jason and my family, I decided to give up the full-time job and take the $6,000 a year job because I thought that would help me in my career a little bit further. And lo and behold, fast forward a few years, I did get married while I was at Minnesota State Moorhead. My wife did not enjoy being so far away from family. And the opportunity to come to Lakeland as a full-time assistant 1 year in just presented itself. And obviously my wife was ecstatic. I wasn't as excited because I loved Minnesota State. I loved working for Stu. I did love the Division II level. But when we moved from Sheboygan to the Milwaukee area, I find this unique. And I say this to my class. I was cleaning out all my old files, and I'm not like a hoarder, a packer, right? All these things, but somehow my first master's paper came out. And I wrote my master's on like my why and what I want to do. And it said I wanted to be like one of the youngest head coaches in the country. And I was shocked that I actually wrote that because I forgot. But I got hired at Lakeland University at age 25. And I say that to all the students because when you start out coaching, you have to figure out what level you want to be at. You have to figure out your why. My why was never to coach at the highest level possible. I just wanted to coach college basketball. My father was a high school and college coach for about 40 years. and a director of athletics at the local high school I grew up in. And I just wanted to be around it. I wanted to coach, and I just wanted to be around young men and be around the game of basketball. And fast forward, 17 years from the first time I was able to lead a program at Lakeland, here I am. So I think finding your why is going to be the biggest thing. Finding, some mentors that are going to help you get there. Right. I've been very blessed to have a lot of assistant coaches. As you could tell, if you kind of study the trees and the assistant coaches under me, we hire a lot of young, motivated guys who have some aggressive goals. And my job, I looked at them kind of like my players, is I want to mentor them. I want them to help me. I want them to challenge me. But my goal is to get them to where they want to be. Hence, look at Sean. He wanted to be a head coach, and he wanted to be at Division I level. And we were able to kind of help him reach his goals of what he wanted. And the cool part is when Sean and I first started together, again, I call him my little brother. That's what he wanted. He wanted to be, he wanted to be at Division I level, but he also wanted to be a head coach. And I'm still shocked it happened, Bob, but he's been able to do both in kind of the first 5-6 years of his coaching career. He's elite at his craft. And you're going to see him on TV someday, coaching a team here real soon. And I think probably 6 years ago, no one would have guessed it when he was at Kenosha Christian Life coaching his high school team. But I saw something special in him, and he knew his why, and he was going to attack his goals, and he's done a phenomenal job at it.
Always amazes me when I do these interviews and hear things, perspectives like you have, finding your why, how they translate to every other profession as well. I've been in the kind of the insurance industry for 31 years, and the corporate world, the finding your why is just as relevant in anything else you do in life as coaching. And so that's really well said. I think people will get a ton out of that. Final thing I just wanted to touch on real quick, your league, the NACC. It's always been a strong league. Last year, you guys, St. Norbert, Benedictine's always in the mix. Rockford, Concordia of Chicago, that's a program on the rise. They came down to the Shirk Center and beat my guys in that Elite 8 year. So I know how good they are. I thought when St. Norbert came to the league from the MWC, that was a really big deal. To me, it kind of just elevated a notch because you bring in a great program to what's always already a strong league. Talk a little bit, if you would, as we start to close out, Aaron, about the conference.
Yeah, I've been in this since the formation of the NACC, actually. So I've been in it a while. It's really cool to see the growth of our league, to see the competitiveness in our league get better every single year. I think the one thing I've noticed over time is the amount of resources that athletic departments are putting into basketball programs in our league, and obviously other sports too. But it's been really cool to watch our league have some success that maybe it didn't have 15, 16, 17 years ago. And our league's pretty unique because, we're rooting for each other to win in the non-league situations. So when I'm watching, pretty much everybody, because I always have a game on my phone or somewhere, right? We're typically never rooting against each other. We're always rooting for each other to win. I don't know. I can't say for a fact that always occurs in other leagues, but we have a league full of great coaches, and honestly, I just think they don't get the respect and credibility that a lot of our guys deserve.
Yeah, it's a league that is very balanced. There's always a great race at the top. The teams that come out of that into the NCAA tournament are always extremely competitive. You proved that last year. Benedictines had incredible runs, et cetera. Aurora going back over the years. So yeah, I just want to make sure that we touched on the NACC. Aaron, this has been a lot of fun, and the thing I like about doing these things is that, getting to know someone like you, I can see why the program is so successful just from listening to you talk about your guys and your approach and your philosophies. So it's been great to meet you. And I think you guys are going to have a monster year this year. I'm going to leave the final thoughts to you. You'll have some Warrior fans tuning in. I know you'll have a bunch of D3 fans around the country tuning in. What would you leave everyone with today, Aaron, on the QCast?
Yeah, just thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be on. I know a lot of our guys and a lot of people are on our program listening to your QCast. So, we kind of feel like we made it here today, Bob. Tongue in cheek. But we're looking forward to the year. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and my mental health will go a lot better if I don't think about Elmhurst or North Park or any conference game we play right now. And I just focus on how the heck can we get a little bit better today. We start practice here in about 3 weeks. So the last thing that's going to be on my mind is game day because, I do have some anxious traits and thoughts in my mind. And I work really hard not to think about who we play when we play them because there's a lot of times it just puts me down a tailspin I don't want to think about. So we're just going to focus on getting better every single day, trying to play a fun brand of basketball, trying to bring some honor and glory to our Lord Savior Jesus Christ in our school, and have some fun doing it.
Yeah, folks, if you haven't watched the Warriors play, they scored 81 points a game last year. Opponents had 357 assists to 462 turnovers. If you just want to think about those numbers, that's the kind of basketball they play. They were 24-5, 16-2 last year. And even though coach doesn't want to talk about it, they do open the season November 8th versus the Elmhurst Blue Jays. That should be a great one. Aaron, best of luck to you when you get practice going in a few weeks. Best of luck to you this season, and hope to see you in a gym somewhere along the way as the season plays out.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.